Hey everybody, this is Jenny with Pratt Family Homestead, and today I want to talk to you about our homemade bread. This has been asked by many people if I could do a video showing how I make our bread, sharing the recipe, things of that nature. And that's from YouTube subscribers to Instagram followers, Facebook friends, you name it. Everybody wants to know. Little bit of background. I do not want to make bread. I've tried in the past, I've used bread machines, I've tried by hand, and it didn't come out good. So I didn't want to do it, but Mike decided to give it a try, and so he did it for the first couple times. And to be honest, it drove me crazy, the way that he would knead the bread. It drove me crazy. It was not the way it was supposed to be done. So I was trying to show him to do it, and then turned out I ended up working my way into making it. He got busy on other projects. I would see we need bread. I would make it. And now it kind of becomes my thing. I make the bread. But I'm glad that he pushed me to do it, because not only is it better, I mean, it tastes amazing. It makes the house smell amazing. But it's better for us. I mean, there's a reason why it goes bad faster than store-bought brands, if you think about it. But if it comes down to it, and we are really short on time and we absolutely have to have bread for something, I have no problem buying a loaf of bread. But if at all possible, I much prefer to make it now. And I love this recipe. It's fast, it's easy, and doesn't take long to put it together. Really, the longest time is just waiting for it to rise. But even that, depending on if you want it really airy or if you want more of a dense bread, it all depends on how long you let it rise. So this is the recipe we use. I can't remember the website that we got it all from. But we have tweaked it and tried different things with it in the past. That it does contain sugar, and we've substituted it with honey. And I think once we get bees going again and we have more honey coming in, I wouldn't mind doing that again. But right now our honey is precious. So I am sticking with the sugar in the recipe. I'm going to show it to you in the basic form of the recipe. Tweak it however you want. Use whatever flour it is you want. I've tried it with wheat flour. I've tried it with bread flour. I've tried it with all-purpose flour. It all comes out the same, and it all tastes great. So do whatever flour works for you. This time around, I'm using all-purpose flour. So here's our recipe. I'm going to do it in basic, the standard, whatever it is, 9x5x3 bread pans. But we do make mini loaf pans. I'm sure you've seen pictures of that on Instagram. They're so little. Obviously, if you use a smaller pan than a standard bread pan, you're going to want to adjust your cooking time. So keep that in mind as well. So I'll go over the ingredients, and I'll go over what to put your oven at, and then I'll show you how to make it. Okay, so the ingredients that you need, obviously, is yeast. Containers or packets, it doesn't matter. You need 1 1/2 tablespoon of yeast. You're also going to need sugar or honey, if you choose to substitute for that. You need 2/3 cup of sugar. You also need about 2 teaspoons of salt. I don't do that much salt. I literally just sprinkle a very little bit in, and that's it. You need 1/4 cup of oil, whatever oil of your choice. But you're also going to need more for coating your bread pans. And I guess I should state that this makes 2 9x5x3, or however that's said, normal bread loaf pan sizes. And then you're also going to need your flour, and then water. You're going to need water. So 2 cups of warm water, between 5 to 6 cups of flour. So keep that in mind when you're getting ready to make it. You need quite a bit of flour. I noticed that on cooler days, my flour ratio is different than on warmer days, so it may vary depending on your climate. I should go ahead and go over the process a little bit for you so you can ensure that you have enough time to make this should you decide to do so after watching the video or even while watching the video. So you're going to mix all your ingredients together. You're going to start by waiting 10 minutes to let your yeast proof, and then you're going to finish mixing in all your flour and stuff like that, working it all together. You're going to coat your bowl with oil, and you're going to let it rise for anywhere between a half hour to an hour, depending on how dense you want your bread. And then you're going to punch it down. You're going to knead it for a while. You're going to split it. Thank you, dog. Split it into your loaf pans, however you want. and you're going to let it rise for another 30 minutes. And then you're going to bake it for 25 to 30 minutes. So that's the process. So think about all that. You know, you got to have some time to be able to work with it. You don't have to sit and watch it rise. Go do other stuff. But you want to make sure that you are tending to your bread so it doesn't go bad. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about making this recipe. Okay, so in my bowl I have my 2/3 cup of sugar, and I'm going to add in my 2 cups of warm water. And now I'm going to sprinkle on my 1.5 tablespoons of yeast. You don't want your water too hot because it will kill the yeast, but you also don't want it too cold or else it's not going to proof and activate. One of the other things that I do is I preheat my oven. And I do this because our house stays cooler being a farmhouse, especially on the cold days like today when it's only 30 and the wind is blowing a little bit. So I preheat my oven so then when my bread is rising, it has a nice warm place to go ahead and be set in. Okay, so this right here is kind of clumpy, and that's showing that it is proofing. It is rising. There's still some dry stuff, but that's just because it's got like a thicker layer. You can kind of see the foamy layer. So it just hasn't gotten moistened yet. But I think it's ready for us to go ahead and mix in. Now you're going to add in your oil and your salt. And mix well. Now you'll start adding in your flour, just a little bit at a time, working with just 1 cup at a time. You don't want to dump it all in there, and you also don't want to work it too much because that'll end up drying it out. So you want to do just a little bit at a time. Okay, so you can see that it's still sticky. It's not forming a ball yet. It's not clumping together completely. It's definitely still sticky down at the bottom, but it's getting close. I've used about 4, let me see, not quite 4 3/4. So I'm going to add just a little bit more. Let it do its thing just a little bit more. I'm trying to get it, you want it to kind of form a ball on its own. So it's still not forming a ball, and I've gone through my 5 cups now, so I'm going to grab another 1/2 cup, and I'm going to just slowly continue to add it until it forms that ball. If you're doing this by hand, you want it to get to a point where it's not sticky. You don't want it to stick to you. But you have to be careful not to overflour and overwork it because it will end up dry and kind of icky. But it's very easy to do. As you're working it, just get it to a point to where it's still easily able to be worked, to be pushed, to be kneaded, but is not sticking to your hands, your fingers, the counter, whatever it is you're working on. Alright, my edges are not looking as sticky. It's all kind of staying together. Let's check it. Whoa, that's heavy. Let's see. Okay, It's not sticking to me. I can push on it and it'll start to come back. It has a nice stretch. That's the elasticity. It stuck to me a very little bit, not bad. It's ready. Okay, so I took my dough out of my bowl, put it on lightly floured counter, and I'm just going to shape it into a ball. I don't need to knead it or work it. It's already there. I've decided to switch bowls just for the ease of things so you can see a little bit better. I have oiled all of this bowl all the way up to the rim because this stuff can really rise. So I'm going to take my ball of dough, drop it in there. Kind of move it around a little bit. You really want to coat all the sides of the dough with the oil from the bowl. You don't want a puddle of oil in the bottom of your bowl. That is not good for your dough. You just want to lightly coat the bowl with the oil, and then you want to flop your dough around so all sides are covered. Then you want to take something damp, a warm, damp towel. I use saran wrap since I put it in the oven that's already preheated. And by preheated, I put it on my keep warm setting and I warm it up to about somewhere between 120 and 145, and then I turn it off while I'm making the dough. And so it cools off a little bit. I put saran wrap over this and I let it rise. You can use a damp warm towel, put it in a warm place. It doesn't have to go in your oven. It can go on top of the stove. It can stay on your counter if it's warm in your house. In the summer, that's what I do. But since it's winter, it's cold. So I'm going to put saran wrap over this and I'm going to place it in the oven for about 40 minutes is the way that we like our bread. Now, waiting for your bread to rise is a great time to go ahead and oil up your bread pans and also clean up your mess. Because with making bread, there's always a mess. But you do want to keep the flour that's on your counter because you're going to have to knead the dough after it rises the first time before you put it in your bread pan. So keep the flour that's on your counter. That you can reuse. Okay, so here's my bread after it's been rising for about 40 minutes. It didn't fill the bowl, but if I were to leave it for the full hour, so another 20 minutes, this bowl would be full to the top. But we like a little bit of a denser bread. So I'm going to go ahead and uncover it. Trying to keep my saran wrap. We all know how hard saran wrap is to work with. Okay, I'm going to punch it down. Get the air out. Okay. I'm just going to take it and dump it onto my flour. Slide y'all back a little bit. And I'm just going to work it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and split it in two because I'm doing 2 loaf pans. For some reason I have a hard time saying that. Okay, now this part's going to be a little bit sticky, so some of this extra flour I've got here, spread it around a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to work my individual loaves. Just a little bit. You don't want it too overworked. You don't want it to get hard. So I'm just going to shape it into a loaf. Drop it in my pan. This one's a little bit smaller. I'm going to cover these using my same saran wrap. Might as well repurpose. And put it back, for myself, put it back in the oven to rise for another 30 minutes. Okay, so as you can see, they've risen up to the top. Like I said, mine are in the oven, so I'm going to take them out. I'm going to preheat my oven to 350 degrees, and then I'm going to bake them for 25 to 30 minutes.
Sounds like I blew up. No, they blew up.
Well, there you have it. There's 2 loaves of bread, fresh out of the oven. A nice golden crust all the way around. I'm going to take them out and I'm going to put them on this cooling rack to go ahead and completely cool.